You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope, the podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with Natasha Weninger. Natasha is not your average wellness and lifestyle coach. With more than 15 years experience in the fitness world and 6 years as an amateur bodybuilder, she's helped thousands of clients achieve their dream body. But her own pursuit of perfection left her exhausted, depressed, and starving. Author of the forthcoming book, The Voice Inside, she now teaches others how to love themselves from the inside out, practice positive self-talk, and connect to what they are truly craving. Once upon a time, you'd find Natasha endlessly sweating out reps at the gym. But these days, when she's not speaking, writing, or coaching clients, you'll find her reading, traveling with her husband, Mike, or playing with her dogs. Ooh, we love dogs here. Yay. So yay. Got to give a shout out to our furry little family friends. Yes. Thank you, Natasha, for being here. I just love your bio. I love everything about you. And I've been dying to do this interview. I know you waited a little while, but welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
One of the first things that we do is we ask all of our guests to share a story of hope. I believe our stories literally inspire others to maybe get through another hour, another day, whatever it needs for them to get through that journey that they're going in. So do you want to share your story of hope with us today?
I cannot wait to share my story of hope with all of you. So if you go back to 6th grade and even before that, I started some really heavy body issues. I was always unsure of as in my body as a child. I never really felt like my body was right. My peers growing up, all my best friends had these thin bodies. My mom was super athletic and fit. And I always just kind of felt like the odd man out. And my biggest fear came true at the end of 6th grade. I was standing in the girls' bathroom with all the popular girls, and a particular girl in who I actually thought was my friend. Like, I had sleepovers at her house. She goes, in the middle of just us having a blast, she goes, "Natasha, you're fat." And I just remember thinking, wow, she just validated how I feel like everyone feels about me. And I ran out of the bathroom to the playground and I was just bawling hysterically. And that was one of the milestones on my journey that set me off in that direction. I remember going home that night and sitting on my bed and taking a journal out and writing out my entire summer of how it was going to look. I mapped out my plan to lose weight, to start exercising more. I was going to, count Cheerios and only eat celery and carrots. And so that kind of started my my youth off in that direction of I was never okay in my body. Throughout the years as I got older, I would kind of negotiate with myself of like, oh, you don't really have a problem, you're fine. And it wasn't until I was in my early 20s that things then took another turn where I started going to the gym and working off what I ate the night before in a different way, like for hours on end. So I was using that as my version of purge. And I was just miserable. And then I got into training clients, and then I got into figure competitions, and then I got into training other girls to get on stage, bikini and figure competitors. And so my looks were all wrapped up in how I looked. And I felt like everyone was holding me on this pedestal, and I felt so expected to be this thing that I thought everybody wanted me to be. And the entire time I was suffering inside, I was miserable. I didn't even know who I was at that point. I had created a version of myself. I call it the fantasy in my book of you create this fantasy of yourself that over time, through whatever it is your caretakers projected onto you, whatever you've seen in the media, however you've taken on the societal norms or cues from what's acceptable, you kind of create this fantasy in your head of like, if I am richer, prettier, and skinnier, then I will somehow win in the end. And that was so far from my truth, because if you look back, I was 6.2% body fat. I was what everyone was obtaining on some level. I was at that like top tier. And we wrap a lot of our happiness up in that if I someday get there, then I will therefore be happy. And that day never comes. Because if you're not right in here, it doesn't matter what you do out here, it will never be good enough. You will never feel full. You will never feel complete inside and out. So for all of those who are struggling in their bodies, who have a story around their bodies, who there is this deep level of suffering in the stories that you've created for yourself, there is a new reality. You can shift out of the reality that you're in and you can step into a new reality. The first step in that, though, is choosing yourself, is deciding that you matter and what you've been doing is no longer working and you want another way to do your life. And it's really all about breaking free from I call it hell that you create for yourself in here. You're breaking free from your chains. Because let's face it, we can be our own worst enemy. We can tell ourselves things that we would never tell the closest people to in our life. We would never say that to their face of what sometimes goes on in here. And I really was so miserable that there was days where I fantasized about ending the pain because I didn't know what to do. If there anything I did out here, it was just left me feeling more empty because I was constantly chasing validation. I was constantly chasing acknowledgement. I was constantly chasing compliments from other people. I was waiting for everyone out here to do it for me. And I was the only one not doing it for myself. And I think that was the turning point of not wanting to wait anymore to leave it up to other people to do that for me. And that's what set me off on my journey of realizing that I had a lot of issues that I needed to take responsibility for, and that it was only up to me to make those changes, that nobody else was going to do it for me. I couldn't be like, oh, hey, honey, I need you to love me more. And I need you to do all these things on my list for me so I don't have to do it. Here you go. This is your responsibility now. It just doesn't work like that in life. We need to fill ourselves up first so we have the capacity to love from a grounded space inside. And I think ultimately the rest of our journey unfolds into flow when we take that first scary step of leaving the comfort zone. And we trust that if we take that leap, as scary as it is, because it was scary when I took that leap. I mean, my biggest fear is I had to sit with, who am I going to be if I'm fat? That was my biggest fear since a little girl. And everything I did in my life was motivated from that place of fear. I got to be and stay thin so I will be loved and accepted and acknowledged. And I have to continue to work towards that goal every day of being perfect so I can have success in some weird way in the end. And it was just really hard to break free from that patterning that had become so ingrained in me from a young age. And I just realized it was almost worse to stay the same. It's like that suffering of staying the same was killing me. And I knew having to change was going to also be really hard, but I knew that staying the same wasn't an option anymore. And I had to just trust that if I didn't like what was in the future, I could always take 20 steps back to the old. But until I took that, one baby step forward, I was never going to know what it felt like to leave that old life. And I'm so glad I did, because my entire life opened up once I stopped focusing on just my physical appearance. It was so freeing for even people around me at the time. It was kind of shocking because even though it was slow and it was a gradual build into who I am now, it's just the old stuff, the old same stuff that Natasha would do just didn't matter anymore. And I had to redo everything. I mean, I had to rehab out of the gym like I was a junkie coming off of drugs. I had to then look at all of my eating issues that came up after I didn't have the gym to run to, which was really scary. I had to sit in the discomfort of going to the store and buying food that scared me to have at home because I didn't trust myself. there were so many elements to my story that I had to break free from the old to step into the new. And I just kept saying every day that you have to choose love over fear, because fear is just a story that you keep going in, and you don't want to be in fear anymore. You want to be in love, and you want to know what it's like to love yourself. And so I led from a place of, and it still brings me tears. It's very emotional, because I look back at that girl who was so scared then. And if I could tell her back then that you were going to be okay, I think that's why I wrote my book. I wrote my book for me 15 years ago. Like, what would I have needed to tell myself 15 or 20 years ago? That's really in the book, of those tips and tools and that coaching that I would have needed back then to talk me off the ledge all those times. But going back to breaking free and unconditionally loving myself, I didn't want to have conditions anymore. Conditions are exhausting. The conditions we place on ourselves is so exhausting. It's draining. And we're the only ones who stand in our ultimate way. So move out of your way, choose another path to step into the unknown. That is scary. It's not supposed to not be scary. There's going to be hard things about stepping into the unknown, but to start to make your journey in the hard okay, to stop pushing away the hard and stop wishing that it wouldn't be hard, and actually meet yourself in the hard and invite it all in. Sit with the fear, be with the fear, snuggle into the fear, because the fear wants to be heard. The fear wants a home. The more we press the fear down, the louder it gets. So it's just, there's a lot of layers to it. I talk a lot about the mean girl and my journey to transforming those places where I was stuck. The mean girl is that inner voice inside of you that tells you that you're not worthy, that doubts you, that's like, are you sure you want to eat that bagel with cream cheese? Are you sure you shouldn't go work out? Are you sure you look okay in that outfit? Are you sure you shouldn't change again before you leave? Are you sure you don't need more Botox? Oh my God, your hair. Are you sure you want it like that? Are you sure? It's like that constant self-doubt that's coming up. And when you subscribe to that voice, you're never going to feel good enough. You're never going to be good enough if you listen to that inner voice, because that inner voice is ultimately what's going to keep you stuck in what you're doing. So a big part of the workshop that I do around courage and confidence with women is identifying the mean girl first and foremost, and identifying her fears. What are her fears? What is her biggest story that she has running? Like, get out your journal and start writing it down. Who does she look like? What is her name? What is the tone and quality of her voice? And then what is her story? And just go through it. Well, so taking me for an example, my story was, no one will love me if I'm fat. And okay, what would happen if no one loved me and I was fat? Well, then I would be all alone. And what would happen if you'd be all alone? Well, then I'd be a failure. I'd be a loser. What would happen if you take it down to the foundation, to the root of your suffering? And then from there, you can rise up with it, be like, oh, okay, there it is, circle it, star it, happy face it, there it is, boom. And then you can start to bring it in a way of compassion, of like, there's the black hole. So I imagine my clients like, mean girl, imagine that you're standing out here and mean girl's in the black hole. And you want to listen to her like your own best friend. If your bestest friend came to you with a problem and she was like, okay, I have this issue, I'm really afraid, you would sit on the couch with her, make her tea, and you would just sit across from her, body language, eye contact, make her feel really safe, really connected. But you're not going to take away her experience for her. You're not going to take her suffering away from her, but you're going to hold compassionate space for her to tell you what's wrong. That's what you're doing with the black hole and mean girl. You're standing outside of it. You're listening to the fear that she has, but you're not going into the hole with her. You don't allow it to. You hold your power up here. You say like, I understand that you're afraid and I'm listening to you. And your fear is valid. But today, can you trust me? Can you hold my hand and come this way? Because we have so many beautiful things that we have to do today. And we can talk about that later, maybe. If it's still there for you, if it's still an issue later, we can talk about it later. And then all of a sudden, it becomes less and less powerful in your life. That voice starts to kind of, there's space between you and that voice. It's not as constant. And then it's like you're kind of making friends with it ultimately. You're like, oh, there you are again. I'm standing in front of the mirror. And what are you saying? Excuse you. That is not the truth. And you just don't subscribe to it. It's like you are like, oh no, remember what we did the other day? We look so good, remember? And I'm not saying fake it, but actually try it from a grounded heart space of really opening yourself up to talking to yourself in a different way. And then we kind of move down to the motivation. Like, why are you motivated? Because it usually goes back to the mean girl. I was motivated out of a place to get love, to receive love. I wasn't motivated out of a place to give love. I wanted to get love. And so I always ask clients, why are you doing the things that you do? Pause and look at that, because doing things out of a place to get love and doing things out of a place to be loved are two totally different things. And if you're trying to be loved, hit the pause button, go back to the fear of mean girl, and then look at the expectations and the pressure that you're feeling because you feel like you owe somebody something, or you're afraid of them judging you for your choice. Because that's always hard. What would you do differently if no one was watching you in this lifetime?
For sure, I would do a lot differently.
Right?
For sure. Like we all would. I know we would. I love that you're talking about this because I have so many people who come to me and they equate their failures based on their looks. And that number on a scale evaluates who they are and their relationships. If I lost more weight, my relationship would be better. If I could just be prettier or smarter, it's always a little more of everything. And let me tell you, if you're striving for perfection, you will constantly be disappointed because there is no such thing. There's just not. And so all you should be striving for is for you to be a healthier, happier person and working on yourself. Words have power. Thoughts become things, as you well know. Everything you're talking about were the thoughts you had in your head, which became reality for you. When you started changing those thoughts, they became a different reality for you. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's so important for every single person listening to this to know you are perfection, exactly how you stand right at this moment. Yes. Like there are no mistakes. You are perfect the way you are, and you are deserving of love exactly as you are. That doesn't mean we can't improve ourselves as human beings. That is a journey we'll be on until the day we are not on this planet anymore. And that's a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. To keep evolving and growing. I want to talk a little bit about your book, The Voice Inside, because you talk about that mean girl, and we all have that mean girl inside of us. And as a matter of fact, I just literally wrote an article for January's magazine, and it was all about detoxifying the words we're using towards ourselves and changing those words to more kinder words. Because if I heard someone else talk to me the way I sometimes talk to me, I would literally be in their face like, hey, you're not talking to me like that. But why is it okay for me to talk to myself that way? So my whole article was on detoxifying the words we use, especially when talking to ourselves, because I truly believe words and thoughts, they all become reality to our brain because it doesn't know any different. If you're telling your brain constantly you're fat, you don't deserve love, you know, you're never going to amount to anything, your brain believes that. Why would you lie to it?
Yeah.
It creates the life around that.
Yeah.
But if you, let's just say you are fat, and let's just say you won't amount to anything. That girl who keeps telling herself, I look freaking awesome, I am going to be a superstar, she will, in spite of all of it, because her brain doesn't know any different.
Yeah. I love that movie with Amy Schumer, I Feel Pretty. That message is so profound for anyone because it's the stance that you hold inside yourself that resonates out here. And she struggled and struggled. And, you know, I think in society, we kind of look at thinner bodies and we're like, people in thin bodies don't struggle. What do they have to struggle for? And I think that I use my story to connect on that level. It doesn't matter what you look like. everyone can struggle with their bodies in any size, any shape, any body. And there is a challenge, and I think that, I've had people go, well, you're still in a fit, thinner body, Natasha. And so, your message, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. Anybody can struggle with how they're feeling about themselves. It goes back to low self-esteem, not a lot of confidence. It goes back to your, it could be childhood traumas, childhood dramas, whatever that's carried over into your adult life. It could be a number of things that have made you feel not worthy, not loved, not accepted, and not enough. And your body is usually the biggest teacher in this lifetime, because it's full of moments where you get to look at loving it more, the pains that it creates, the sensations that are in it, the day to day. It's not always going to be perfect in there, no matter what size you are. And you have to make space for it to have an experience too. Because a lot of the time we project, like what you were saying about your thoughts, we project that onto the body. So we project a certain perspective on how and what we think our body should be. We want to control our bodies constantly. So we have to look at where that control comes from so we can unpack that and get away from it, because our bodies don't want to be controlled. They just want to be loved. They don't want to be in a controlling relationship with us. It's like a controlling relationship with either a best friend, a good friend, or a loved one. You're not going to be in a toxic, controlling relationship if you know your self-worth.
And I would almost say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably struggled more when you got into that thinner body, because it's a lot of work to keep it up, to feel like there's so much pressure of going back. So I totally agree that when you look at someone and they look perfect to you, and you're like, they've never had a struggle in their lives, you have no idea what's going on in their life to maintain that or to be there. And so you just have to start having more compassion for others, having more grace for others, more understanding, and know that we are all living in our own heads with our own baggage. And we sometimes, respond differently to it. Like you over responded by working 100 times harder than you would have had that friend of yours not said that to you. And always feeling like you had to keep up and be better than, and beating yourself up if you missed a beat. So I love that. First of all, I love that you had that journey, and you should just find that friend of yours and send her a thank you.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Because she created a movement inside of you for this beautiful journey, so that now you can put your hand out and help other women that are going through it. And I'm telling you, we are all going through it. I remember I had a body image issue mostly because I had a double mastectomy. I had multiple surgeries on my stomach, and it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like an alien had taken it over. And it wasn't until in the last couple of years, I just started owning it and was proud of those scars. And the other option would be not being here. So I was grateful for that part of the journey. But that was probably the first time that I ever had really big, I wouldn't even hug someone because I was afraid they would feel that I had implants if I pressed against them. So I did the side hug, and I just didn't want anyone touching me. I would never let my stomach be exposed because of all the scars. And now I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be on this side of that journey. And I love myself. I love that it's still here doing what it needs to do to keep me going forward. But it took me a while to get to that place. So you just never know what people, I'm a mindset coach. I know better, but sometimes we're the worst.
We're the worst. And I think that that's a really valid point, is you're never, it's so challenging. Every day is different. As you age, it's different. And it's never going to just across the board you're not always going to feel empowered in your body. You're not always going to, but those days are fewer, far less in between than just having more days than not like that, to feel okay. I'm not feeling super empowered in my body today, but that's okay. I'm going to meet myself in it and with it. And I'm going to, like you said, be super grateful for the small wins that I've got going on today. I've got 2 legs that are getting me around. I've got great lungs that are breathing in the air. I've got so much going for me, and I can still get about and do my daily routine. And let's look at that. And I think a
Right. You
lot of the
should
time,
start celebrating those little wins because some days that is all you have are the
yeah,
little wins. So give yourself credit that when I was sick and I started getting well, I remember I would sit up in bed and I was grateful that I woke up. That was my gratitude for that day. And
I
so
love
I
it.
celebrated every day that I have another day to do it all over, to do better, to feel better, and to keep working on that journey. I love you. I want you to tell people where they can get your book because I want everyone to get this book. I want people to connect. I know you have retreats. I want to just touch on that. I just feel like
Yeah.
you can, like, you're out there lifting women. And I think that the best way for all of us to rise is to be grabbing others and pulling them along with us, right? And lifting them up.
Yes.
So
Yes.
tell us where we can find your book and a little bit about the retreats so people know that they can meet other women and go into a group where you're just supporting each other and rising together. It's just amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So my book, you can go either onto my Instagram at Body Love by Natasha, and I have my link tree linked in my website as well as where to purchase my book. It's all right there. Or you can just go to my website at www.bodylovebynatasha.com, and all of my information is on there. My book link is also on there. All my coaching programs are on there. Upcoming event retreat information is on there. This one particularly, this retreat is through an organization called Women Who Warrior. It's a Santa Barbara founded company. It's amazing what they're about, exactly what you just said, all about lifting and rising women up and really holding a safe space for everyone to do work. It happens once a year, but I hold small retreats through my own personal venue, and that information can be found on my website.
Well, thank you. We're going to put all those links so you can connect with Natasha really easily in the show notes so that you'll be able to find her, get her book, and learn more about her. Natasha, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so, so much. This was such an honor. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.